Hello, dear viewers, and welcome to the very likely last update, and the fifth one, from my stay in Tokyo, which you can see all around me. No, I haven't fixed the bug with the slideshow. The bug is that it won't show more than 4 pictures, however many you select. But I decided to just select 4 that I like and allow them to play in the background here with I think 20-second interval. So you'll see them plenty of times. And if you want, I'll show them again on stream. Today I'd like to talk about one thing mostly. Just update or reminder. I'll be back home on Monday. I don't believe I'll stream on Monday evening. I probably could. I should be home in time unless there's some delay. But I think I'll be too tired. Tuesday, I might stream on Tuesday, and if not that, then very likely Wednesday. And that's how it goes. I mean, then we'll just continue as usual from there on. What I'd like to talk about today is the new game idea that I probably mentioned a couple of times already. I made a few sketches, actually. Here's another one. Just layouts of the game. It's going to be a one-screen affair. Yeah, it's very likely one screen. Maybe 2, like a menu screen and then the game. So I've been thinking about it, not too much. I've been taking a very relaxed approach to the entire project. As I said, I like to make something simple, and that's fast to make. That doesn't require too much effort. But something that should be fun to play on stream. And I think I've come up with a concept. I've been developing it a bit more and more. This is not necessarily the final concept, the final rules or anything like that, but I think I have a good grasp of the general idea now. So I'd like to present it to you. Here we have, can you see? Yes. This should be the game screen as such. And what you see is, well, like one large, basically open area in the middle with some little symbols in it, and then 5 boxes vertically stacked on each side. The idea is that this large central area should be presented as a grid, a square grid, with a grid of squares. Actually, it's drawn on squared paper, so you might imagine, I don't know if you can see those squares other than very closely. They're quite weakly printed on the paper. But never mind, that's not the most important thing. But you will move on squares, much like in the weather event and beast event in my other game. It's a 2-player game, a versus game, so you play 2 players play against each other, much like many popular board games, not the least of which are chess and, I don't know if you call it Reversi or Othello or Magic the Gathering. I guess it's not really a board game, it's a tabletop game, but you know what I mean. You try to defeat the other player. That's the goal. I haven't actually decided in what manner you should defeat the other one, but I think it's going to be something along the line of obtaining an objective other than destroying the other player. I mean, in chess, it's to basically capture the king, for example. So it doesn't matter how many pieces the other player has left. If the king is caught, then that's that. is there another one? I can't think of a specific one. I can think of a few, but I don't know what their names are in English. That's the problem. Because I haven't played them since I was a child. Anyway, so the 5 little stacked boxes on each side would represent or contain data about. I'll put that there for now. About 5 robots. I want this to be about robots vying for control of some area of land. That's the story. I imagine they're this is very inspired by retro game, games that I haven't really played, but I've read about in magazines lately because I've become such a programming and retro gaming, I wouldn't say fanatic, but enthusiast. I don't really play them. I read about them and get inspiration for my own programming projects and game design and such. And there seem to be a lot of them that go on, like old Atari and Commodore games that go on in space on space stations and spaceships and the like, and you control robots or drones or something like that. And I've been thinking about that. I posted an image on Instagram with a tentative title, of Steel Stratum, which I think sounds really cool. And it sort of looked like a retro, like the splash screen or title screen of a retro arcade or action adventure game from the mid-80s era, I guess. I was 3 years old at the time, so I don't remember it personally, but I've seen many of those games personally. Anywho, so yes, you probably have, I guess 5, maybe 7. It depends on how large I make the board, what I feel looks good. But 5, you'll control somewhere between 5 and 7 robots, I think. You'll start at each end, I think. At each corner you have a little, like a flash symbol there, which is supposed to be like a electrical power symbol, often used in many countries. One in that corner, one in the other corner, and actually one in the middle. I put the ones in the corner because I thought that would be the starting position. Each player's group will be grouped in opposite corners around a kind of power outlet. And then I guess the goal would be either to destroy all the other ones or get something that's in the middle. In this tentative board, I've just put another power outlet in the middle, and then there's supposed to be gun turrets close by. So the idea is that you can refill your robot's powers at the power outlets, and if you go attach yourself to the gun turret, you gain some level of control of it. Or rather, I guess they will be inactive, and if you attach one of your robots to it, and no other robots touch it, then it will sweep the game board on your behalf, so to speak, shooting at the other team's robots. But you won't be able to control it directly, and that's supposed to that's one of the later mechanics I thought of. I haven't decided yet if the robots if you will be able to directly attack any of the enemies in any way. I'd like for there to be some way of blocking. Maybe I should just enumerate what I think the robots should be able to do. So you will have an objective. It will be either to, as I said, destroy the other team outright, maybe just gain control of all the 3 power outlets, or gain control of something else, or dig something up, or build something somewhere. Something that takes, if it's not destruction of the others or gaining control of all the power outlets, then I think it should be something that takes a little bit of time, so that the opposite, even if you reach, let's say you're tasked with building something in the center, then the other team should have some. If you reach it first, the other team should have some means of stopping you. And I want it to be every round. As I said, you will move your number 1 robot, and then the other player will move their number 1, and then you will move your number 2, and so on and so forth. And for every time you move, you can, I guess you'll be able to choose 3 actions. It should be to move, to well, what one? I had thought that one of them would be one should be to interact with the environment. I guess, like for example, hook up to a gun turret. Maybe that. If you want to have control over a gun turret, you can't move your robot or do anything else. Or the interaction could be building that something, or yes, building a wall maybe. I thought about the possibility of being able to build walls, for example. And then you should possibly be able to attack the others. But of course it shouldn't be a very strong attack. It should just be, it should be something that you could use to prevent the others from obtaining their goal, but at the expense of you not really being able to do your thing. So you can choose to do that thing instead. Another mechanic is that every robot will have a limited power source. No, not power source, sorry, power supply. And the power sources were those flash symbols, light or lightning symbols, whatever you want to call them. So you can fill that up like a fuel gauge or whatever you want. And then you can move and interact and possibly attack until that power supply has diminished. And maybe you, for example, if you want to attack, maybe you can choose the intensity of the attack. You can maybe you can make a rather strong attack with your robot, but then it will be down to emergency power, possibly. Maybe it would be. Maybe you should. I don't know. Should you be able to deplete your robot's energy completely so that you can't move? I guess there are 2 possibilities. Either you should be able to move at a snail's pace. So let's say normally you can move 3 squares in any direction, or whatever, 3 squares, according to the rules that I've the movement rules that I've yet to write. And maybe when you're on emergency power, you can only move 1 square at a time. Or you just run out of power, and maybe another robot can give you power if they want to. The second option is interesting, but it would also mean that it's very possible to end up in a scenario where you have no possibility to do anything. All your robots are depleted of power and you can't do anything. So I think the first option is probably fairer, more fair, so have a chance of limping back. But maybe you should have that recharge from an ally should be a possibility, another interaction possibility. Good idea, actually. Hadn't thought of that before. As always, this is a bit rambling, but I think you get the gist. So quite a normal setup for a board game. Again, those vertically stacked boxes will then, of course, contain information such as, for every robot, there will be one for each robot on your side. It will show how much power it has left. Possibly some durability, or what you might call health in another game, to see how strong it is. Maybe the robots can repair each other as well. That's actually an interesting idea. That's a nice idea too. So I was thinking of there are these different variables that I have enumerated, possibly one or two that I've forgotten to mention right now, and then you can sort of play around with them as a designer and try to achieve different playing challenges. So, for example, another thing I've been thinking of that is a reality in my existing board game, where you don't play as robots, you play as some kind of people, not necessarily humans, but that's beside the point. They're humanoid, in where their health corresponds in great extent, or is very very greatly related to their ability to perform actions. So at the base level, every character has 4, let's call them action points. Don't remember what I call them in the game. The game's written in Swedish, I believe. I have the manual at home in Denmark. But four such points, and they're also the health. And every time they get attacked, except in very rare cases, they take 1 point of damage, and then they also have 1 less action point. So a very hurt soldier is also a rather useless one. That idea wasn't entirely balanced, I found out upon playtesting, which was like 2 years ago now. But it worked decently well. There was the possibility of healing another, and also there was the possibility of buying exoskeletons for your soldiers to give them more action points and ability to carry more equipment. I actually believe that if they had an exoskeleton, they would retain all the action points of that, so that there were different levels of exoskeletons as well. So the best ones gave you quite a lot of extra action points. I think the most a soldier could have was 9 or 10, because they could actually, after hypothetically, after there was I provided rules for continuous use of the same, let's call it army or troop, so that soldiers could gain experience and actually level up a little bit, not very much, but go from 4 to 5 action points. That was the maximum, because I figured they were really really well trained and fit to begin with, so any gain from experience wouldn't be terribly great, but 5 is more than 4, and then with an maximum exoskeleton, they would get 4 more, I believe. 4 or 5. I think you get the point, and I'm rather far down this tangent. Yes, one final note about these turrets there in the middle, or around the middle. As I said, you can attach one of your robots to it, and it will start working for you. Here I thought I would try to make use of my new knowledge of circles, drawing circles. So these gun turrets will sweep around, round and round, for each round played. But for example, if one robot was attached to one, then it could only sweep 1/4 of the playing field, and you don't have any control over which one it sweeps. I think it would just always sweep like turnwise, clockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. Sorry, turnwise is, I think it's a term from the Discworld novels, which I've been reading. I often read them on my phone when I'm, often in general, actually. So never mind that. Clockwise or counterclockwise, doesn't matter. But if you, let's say you attach, there are 4 sides to them because it's a game of squares. So the game board consists of squares rather. So you could have a maximum of 4 robots attached to it. Well, I guess 8 if you counted the diagonals, but I don't think I will. And and then you would sweep the entire board every round, and possibly get off more shots as well. You know, so 1 robot, but then 1/4 of the board every time, and maybe 1 shot. But if it's if there are 4 robots attached, then you'll sweep all of the board and shoot 4 times. But then, of course, you have 4 of your robots tied up doing one thing. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. I want it to be a challenge to make priorities and figure out what strategy will defeat your opponent. And yeah, that's my goal, to make this an interesting game to play for 2 players. Not too complex, but not too simple either. So that's, you know, and the not too simple means there should be some level of complexity, because and flexibility, so that you can choose different play styles. I tried to achieve that. This is Untrodden Lands, with Untrodden Lands, the last game, but of course there will be greater flexibility when playing against someone else, more room for the word I can't remember now, which I really should. Improvisation. How do you forget that? I think it's spelled exactly the same in Swedish. Yes, it is. It's just pronounced slightly differently. I think that's it. Apart from the fact that I think I mentioned that this is not necessarily the final layout of the board. It was just an idea. The board might be, you know, if you imagine that these things are 1 square in size, you know, everything takes up 1 square. The charging stations, etc. Then these are too big. I want things to be at least a little bit smaller than this, so that we can have some room to move around. It shouldn't be too small, because again, or rather, I should say that there might be more, for example, more gun emplacements, more power outlets, and maybe other things as well that you can make use of in some way. As long as the basic gameplay is quite simple, then you can add little features, as long as they're not something that the player needs to, you know, learn to control. Maybe, you know, you can attach your robot to a power outlet, to a gun turret, or to what might it be, a mine, I don't know, and achieve some advantage by doing that. Should be straightforward. But I like the idea of a slightly larger playing field. For the one weakness in a game such as chess, according for me at least, or in my opinion, is that it is quite small, and you're very limited. I mean, yes, there are millions, maybe billions of possible games, you know, game flows, so that it's unlikely that you'll ever play the same game twice, the same, with the exact same moves. Sure, but each little character can only move in specific ways, and advanced players learn to recognize patterns. I've read. For example, and it's so simple, relatively simple, that with a lot of practice you can win by experience. I want to as great an extent as possible to eliminate the advantage that experience gives. When it comes to versus games where two or more players face each other and try to defeat each other, I'd like to eliminate skill and experience as significant factors as much as possible, because that would mean that however many times one person has played it, another person can come in and play the first time and win by sheer intelligence, or analytical ability. I want to try to achieve that. I realize it's probably impossible to achieve it fully, but my theory is that if I make a game so sophisticated, in the sense that, for example, here we have this board, and you could change the layout of the board, for example, and then you give all the little characters, in this case the robots, the same abilities, quite basic abilities, but the same ones, but in enough of them that you don't know exactly what the other player can do, or will do rather. I think that's a good way of making sure that you can't. It will be difficult to recognize patterns of movement and such. In my board game, I've taken it further, because this apes some of the what are they called? Games Workshop strategy games. In that, at the beginning of the game, each player is given a number of sort of cash points. They're given a number of soldiers, and they all have a basic equipment, but the players can upgrade them with their points. Both players receive the same amount of points, but there are so many upgrades that it is very difficult to know what one player will choose, and there are many paths to choose. You can go for lots of cheap equipment, but in order to give every soldier a little bit of a leg up, or you can go with very heavy or expensive equipment, such as those exoskeletons I spoke of before. They're great because they allow you to carry a lot. You can carry heavier weapons and more med packs and such things, and you can make a sort of super soldier, but sort of a little bit, or quite a lot, at the expense of his or her allies. And in the version that I had, it was possible to see, for example, what general kind of armor and weapon and exoskeleton the opposing side was wearing, but not the specifics. And there were small variations within each. So you could see, that one is carrying a medium-sized rifle, but you don't know if it's a sniper rifle or if it's a high, like a rifle with a high rate of fire or whatever. And so there was a possibility of surprising the opponent. There was also other equipment which you couldn't see, such as I said, med packs, close combat weapons, grenades. And this made it, even if you could see all the other soldiers and see what they were doing, you couldn't know exactly what the other one was planning. Even if you could see the movement, it was impossible to know exactly what they were planning, because you didn't know exactly what each of those soldiers were carrying. You only knew that you both had the same value of equipment. You could sort of figure out, well, if that guy just attacked me with a grenade, that means he has spent that many points on grenades, etc. I don't know if that I will put in such, an economy like that in this game. Also because if it will be played on stream, then you guys would have to make your purchases through me. So again, that would sort of eliminate much of the point. And I'm not going to be studying up on networking and such yet, and therefore it won't be possible for you to control anything directly on your own screen, hidden from my view. Sorry, but that's not my focus at the moment. This has turned into quite a long video, I think. Longer than I intended. That's often the case. I hope you think this sounds interesting. I would really like to hear your comments. Read your comments, either now or on stream later. Is there anything more I can say about this? I don't think so. So, yeah, looking forward to hearing your opinions if about this, and possibly playing it quite soon. With that, I would like to wish you a good time of day, as I've done from Tokyo in these update videos. Yes, and see you soon next week. Goodbye.